The last time we reviewed a Bowers and Wilkins product, it did not go well.
So is the Bowers and Wilkins Px7 S2 going to change that? Or is it just a good-looking, overpriced piece of junk? Let's pit them against the Sony WH-1000 XM5 and the Apple Airpods Max. Goedendag, we're DHRME, dark-haired reviewers making entertainment.
Well, there's no two ways about it. The Bowers and Wilkins Px7 S2, it can turn heads. And we don't mean their clamping force either. We have this awesome blue with the golden trim, and love it or hate it, these are not something to be ignored. Other than the AirPods Max, the last time we talked so much about the looks of headphones was when we reviewed the Sennheiser Momentum 3 over-ears. Unfortunately, Sennheiser decided to go down the plain and boring route with its Momentum 4, so we're happy that Bowers and Wilkins has taken up the mantle. It comes in 3 colors compared to the 5 on the AirPods Max and the 2 on the Sony. But it's not just the color choice too. It's the materials, the woven pattern on the headband, the leather cups, all reek of class. Say what you want, these guys know how to make stuff look desirable. Maybe that's why the S2 is so expensive?
We couldn't find what materials the S2 is made of. If you know, leave a comment down below. But suffice to say that it feels very solid and premium. All 3 headphones here are pretty good. If anything, the XM5 feels the least premium because it's so damn light. But there's absolutely no creak and it's not bad by any means. The S2 has about the same size case as the Sony, but it feels more durable than Sony's case and is certainly superior to the leather lingerie you get for the Max. The color of the S2 also matches the case, which is a nice touch. All of these 3 have wear sensors. You know, the ones that pause or resume audio based on whether or not you're wearing them. But the S2's wear sensor is disabled by default. Is that a red flag? Well, not to us, it isn't. In the app, you can change the sensitivity of the wear sensor, and we set it on low to avoid unnecessary stoppages in our music. It worked fine, and that's that. When it comes to interacting with these headphones, we have 3 variants of controls here. The S2 with its tried and tested buttons, the AirPods Max with a button and a crown, and the Sony with a hybrid touchy-feely as well as a button system. To be honest, we have 0 complaints about each of these. The S2's buttons feel very high quality, and the Sony's touch surface is the most responsive touch surface we have ever tested on any headphones. The best volume controls on any of these is by far the rotating crown on the AirPods Max, which gives you stepless volume control that's just unparalleled. I mean, the company that popularized multi-touch hasn't used touch control for headphones. And we kind of agree. But history lesson aside, Apple demonstrates how you can pack so many controls using 2 control elements. But there is a small degree of customization of the controls for the other 2, which we cannot say for the Max. For battery life, the AirPods Max is the worst of the lot with a maximum of 20 hours. But not just that, you have to use a lightning cable to charge it. Lightning. Ew, get it? Anyway, Apple also is an atheist when it comes to holes of a 3.5mm diameter. The S2 doesn't feature a hole, but you can plug into holes on other devices using the provided USB-C to 3.5mm cable. Added bonus, the S2 is the only one to support audio playback from USB-C to USB-C, if you're into that kind of thing. On the Sony, you have 2 holes, one for the 3.5 to 3.5mm cable to play audio, and one for USB-C for charging. Both Sony and Bowers and Wilkins include the required cable in the case, at no extra cost. That's not lightning. Alright, enough Max bashing. One place we do prefer the AirPods Max is
when it comes to sound quality, especially for the sub-bass and a fun, friendly sound. Now here's a disclaimer, we did test the AirPods Max with Apple Music on an iPhone, so we can't really say if that vertical integration of the hardware and software stack gives the Max some advantages. And we didn't test it on Android because, I mean, what do you think? But what we can say is that it's still the best sounding ANC headphones for us. There are a few more we want to review that might come close, so stay tuned and subscribe to the channel for that one. But so far, this one rocks. Sure, it's not perfect. Don't go all audiophile on us. We like what we like. The only customization you can get for these headphones is the headphones accommodation settings in iOS, and changing to a vocal range opened up the sound a little bit more for us. In second place would be the Bowers and Wilkins Px7 S2. It sounds really nice. The 40mm angle drivers do a great job. Out of the box, the bass sounds a very teeny bit boomy, and there's a bit of a treble peak that accentuates the S's. This is very obvious in a song like Outliers by Aviations. Again, I'm a bit treble sensitive, so sometimes it got annoying to my ears. What was ironic was that dropping the bass and pushing up the treble did help to open up the sound considerably. While it largely fixes the slight mid-bass boominess, the treble peak obviously did not go away. We're a bit salty that there's no multi-band EQ here, but a treble and bass adjustment instead. But even so, overall the S2 sounds very hi-fi. And the great thing about the S2 is that it works for all genres, be it dance, rock or jazz. Whether it's the iPhone's AAC or the Android phone's aptX, we thought that the S2 delivers on either without any problem. Now, even though we're saying that this is last place, let's just be clear, we like the Sony WH-1000 XM5 too. With LDAC on board and decent drivers, it also has the most customizability here with its 5-band EQ and bass slider. The Sony can get very close after EQing, but you have to give credit where credit is due. Bowers and Wilkins have done a good job with their drivers and tuning, so we'd pick them at number 2. About that number 2, there are also 2 ways for you to support us. We do this channel part-time right now, and your help on Patreon or YouTube memberships are great ways to support us.
Speaking of support, Bowers and Wilkins didn't send us these headphones. We bought them with our own money. And for some administrative reasons, we have to return these. So we never got to exchange these for a newer one. And the reason for this little tale is to clarify, unfortunately, the microphones on our S2 were a dud and never worked. Not on Android, not on iOS, not on voice memos, not on phone calls, and not even after factory resets. Just to be clear, we're not saying that their mics are good or bad, just that the one on our unit didn't work. So yeah, it is what it is. But fret not, you couldn't hear the sounds of our voices through the S2, but
the world is full of other voices and noises and all sorts of stimuli. A good pair of ANC headphones helps achieve that peace you might be looking for. But does Bowers and Wilkins put their money where their ears are, or what was that saying again? The S2 touts their 6 microphones for outstanding noise cancellation. Well, let's just say they're putting their money somewhere, but not in the noise cancelling department. In our testing, it fared below average, like in tier E, like A, B, C, D, E. Yeah. That E. That puts them higher than the likes of the Shure Ioniq 40, for example, but lower than most other headphones, even the B&O Beoplay HX and H95. Just for reference, the AirPods Max and the Sony XM5 are tier A. Top-notch ANC across all frequencies. On the S2, an average amount of low end is cancelled out, but the voices come through. The ranking purely for ANC at about 70 dBA is Sony WH-1000 XM5 and the AirPods Max. They're kind of in the same tier, not exactly the same, but in the same class, followed by the Bowers and Wilkins Px7 S2. Unlike the Sony, there are no fine-grained adjustments to be made in the app, just off ANC or transparency. There also aren't a million ways to go from ANC to transparency, like Sony, that goes into transparency mode if you talk, or cup your ear, or stand up, or walk, or go to school, or return from school, or if your favorite cat walks across your neighbor's lawn during the Cricket World Cup.
Luckily, the S2's transparency mode fares better than the S2's ANC mode. Of course, the gold standard here is the AirPods Max, since it sounds almost like you're not wearing headphones at all. Tier A. The S2 is in Tier C. That puts them in the company of the B&O Beoplays we mentioned before, and better than the Bose 700 or QC45 for transparency. Not bad. Even though the Sony XM5 is in Tier B, it's incredibly close to the S2. All the frequencies seem like they're suppressed and masked, but usable in a pinch for a conversation with a cashier or a barista. The ranking purely for transparency at 59 to 67 dBA is number 1, the AirPods Max, number 2, Sony WH-1000 XM5, and number 3, the Bowers and Wilkins Px7 S2. If you want to see all the tiers in their entirety, there will be a video we will be dropping soon on the best noise cancelling headphones of 2022. So definitely stay subscribed for that one. Or go out and binge 5 videos of ours and YouTube will keep promoting us in your feed. Whichever one is the most comfortable for you.
But of these 3 headphones, by far the Sony is the most comfortable. It's not even close. It's as light as a feather, 200 odd gram feather, and the clamping force is pretty much non-existent. The ear pads do heat up a bit and our ears press up against them. The AirPods Max and the S2 are trying to win the clamping strength contest, and the title of Clampy McClampface goes to the AirPods Max. So while the S2 is fairly clampy too, we think it's a smidge better than Apple's generously aluminum case. So as we said, Sony was the most comfortable and we would choose the S2 the next and then the AirPods Max.
The S2's app on Android and iOS is sufficient. There's nothing crazy, but the frustrating thing is that you actually need to register to sign up for the app. It's not enough to hand Bowers and Wilkins a shitload of money, they want our data too? Not cool. It's not as crazy packed with features as the Sony's app, but few apps are. And that brings us to multipoint. Just like Sony, the S2 can do multipoint, i.e. connect to two devices simultaneously. What we also like is that it's easy to initiate connection to a third device from the app. Just hit the Pair New Device button and the pairing begins. The app, interestingly, has its own Bluetooth connection. That means in theory, your app could be connected on one phone and the headphones to two other devices for audio. But actually, that's kind of useful to know. We just wish it was called something better than LE_BWHP, so we wouldn't be freaking out about a connected rogue Bluetooth device in our device list. A few quirks though. Strangely, the app also decides to launch itself whenever you turn the headphones on. Annoying, and we couldn't find a way to turn it off. It feels like a very 2015 thing to do, but there it is. Also, there were times when the app refused to show the multipoint device list option. So we wouldn't say it worked flawlessly. But speaking of multipoint, how does it perform? Dare we say it's one of the best multipoint implementations we've seen. Android iOS, Android Android, Windows Android, whichever device pair we threw at it, the S2 handled it. And that too, we could hit play on the second device and the first device seamlessly paused. That is great. You can also add a device as a preferred device and enable auto connect to the last connected device. Google's Fast Pair is also on board. And despite the lack of pull connection and a slightly buggy device list in the app, the multipoint gets the DHRME seal of approval.
So, which of these three rather expensive headphones should you choose? For those living in Apple's metaverse, see what we did there? For those living that Apple life, is the AirPods Max an automatic choice? Well, we're sorry to say, but it kinda is. I mean, it's not just that you can only customize the AirPods Max on Apple devices, or that you can get automatic nearby notifications on your other Apple devices, or that you can use Find My Device, spatial audio, etc. But just the basics, the build, the sound quality, the ANC, the transparency of the Max are just top notch. The price and the comfort might be the only reasons you give the Max a pass. Alright, so you've skipped the Max, or you're just allergic to Apples. Sony or Bowers and Wilkins? Well, unless you're extremely fashion conscious or that slightly better sound quality is important to you, we're sorry to say, but it's Sony all the way. The comfort, the customizability, app, ANC, transparency, and the one thing we haven't talked about, the killer phone call quality of the microphones that Sony's WH-1000 XM5 brings to the table. All of these are just incredible. And you know what? At least here in the Netherlands, the Sony is a whole €55 cheaper than the Bowers and Wilkins. Sony's also been using sustainable packaging and incorporating recycled parts in its headphones, whereas we couldn't find anything on the Bowers and Wilkins site about sustainability. For the latest prices in your region, check out the links in the description below. Helps out the channel at no extra cost to you. But if that price difference holds, or even if they're the same price, we just say, go for the Sony. We are never receiving another free sample from Bowers and Wilkins ever again. And we've been DHRME. Namaste.